50 different recommendations from our doctors about how we can help my special needs daughter. How are we supposed to do all of this? Today, I'm not going through all 50 of the recommendations, but I am going to go through and help break down how I'm tackling this mound of paperwork, how I'm taking the recommendations, how I'm organizing them, and making a plan to implement the ones that are most important to us in a timely manner. So let's get started. The first step when you get this many recommendations is to take a deep breath and pray. Ultimately, that is the most important thing you can do because it is so easy to get overwhelmed, discouraged, or just struggle through this process. Acknowledge the fact that it's hard. Acknowledge the fact that this is going to take some work and it's going to take time to adjust. And pray about God giving you wisdom on how to proceed forward. The second thing we're going to do before we even get to the report is we're going to talk through the different lies that we are telling ourselves. We're going to identify what are our fears, what are our concerns about all of these testing things, and we're going to separate truth from lies. Doing this with a spouse, with a good friend, with your pastor is a really good idea because there is a lot of opportunity when we come to this kind of thing when it comes to special needs kids, where there's a lot of opportunity for Satan to fill our head with lies. And so we want to be prepared for that battle and take those thoughts captive. Now that we've done that, we are ready to actually look at all of these recommendations. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a few pens or a highlighter and we're going to go through and highlight everything that we are already doing. Things that we're already making. There were a lot of adaptions here in this report that were about making sure that my daughter has one-on-one instruction several times throughout the school day. That's what I'm doing in homeschooling. So now I can highlight those things and know I've taken care of it. Also, there was different recommendations as far as making sure that she's getting a lot of encouragement through the day. Could I increase the amount of encouragement? Yes, but I know that that is something that we focus on a lot in our homeschool, so I went ahead and gave it a highlight. I also went through with a red pen and crossed out anything that doesn't apply because some of these recommendations are specifically made for public school students. They are things like talk to your IEP team about such and such adaptions. Don't need to do that. Her entire education is an individualized education plan. So I don't need to worry about any of those recommendations. Now, after those two things are done, we are going to look through and group the tasks that are left. Don't worry if there are still a lot of tasks on the list. We are going to look through and look for common themes. A couple of the common themes that I found in our recommendations was need for visual supports. There were several different areas where they suggested using visual supports to help my child. There was also several tasks that involved training or education, both training my child on how to handle the different developmental disabilities that they have, to handle some of those learning challenges, and education books, resources that they recommended for me to check out. The third thing was education adaptions. These are maybe different tools, resources, maybe inserting more breaks into her school day, removing timed tasks, allowing adaptions like a calculator or a multiplication chart, and more. 4 was services. There were several different either therapy services, tutoring, when we need to follow up with the psychologist again, and so on and so forth. So marking all of those like items together helped me to keep in mind what appointments I need to make and what I need to prioritize. The 5th one was curriculum changes. And these were not specific curriculums they recommended, but more certain features that I should look for in her curriculums. Things like math curriculums with more manipulatives and way more practice, like more than you think is absolutely needed because math is a significant struggle for her. Other adaptions is doing things like pre-teaching lessons. So you're going to go in, you're going to talk about what they already know. You're going to ask them what do they think they're going to learn based on the title or based on the topic that we're discussing. And then we'll actually teach the lesson and then review afterwards. So lots and lots of review. Number 6 was environmental changes. So environmental changes has to do with reducing distractions around her, including more structure, helping her learn how to organize her material, maybe based on color. So maybe everything with spelling is in red and everything for writing is in orange, or so on and so forth. They even mentioned preferential seating, which is typically something we see in school settings and not in the homeschool setting. And I almost marked it off as a red item, as something I didn't need to worry about, because most of the time it's one-on-one instruction. So obviously she's getting preferential seating. She's sitting close to me. She's able to understand and engage more. However, I did realize that it does apply to homeschooling when I'm working on group subjects. My kids will sit all over the living room, and recognizing that maybe she needs to sit a little closer to me, or I need to be more cognizant of where she is sitting to make sure that auditorily she can hear what I am saying and to make sure she can see the visuals that I'm using and teaching. Number 7 was physical exercises that she needs to incorporate. We got recommendations from the psychologist, but we also got recommendations from her occupational therapist. Things like moving each of her joints in isolation every single day to keep her from causing to get stiff or having extra pain. She also is supposed to be incorporating some different ways of carrying her school books or opening doorknobs or things like that to remove the pressure on her joints. So those were all physical adaptations or exercises that we needed to make as well. And the 8th category that I made was things that I'm choosing not to do right now. That doesn't mean I will never do them, although some of them I probably won't. But they are things that are very low priority to a no priority thing. And that is okay. We need to recognize as parents that these are recommendations. That doesn't mean they're going to apply to every child in every situation. And as a parent, we have the right to say, no, thank you. One example of this for us in this testing is that they recommended a couple of different times that she take up a sport or an extracurricular. And their reasoning for it was very clear. They wrote it out, and it was that she would have something other than school that she could excel in. Well, she does have activities that she does that she can excel in, but we're meeting them in different ways. So it's not necessary right now. And frankly, on top of all of the other things she has going on with therapies and appointments, it would be far too much for her and for our family. Now that I've gone through and I've categorized all of the different recommendations under one of those 8 categories, I then just chose one category, either the category that is most important or urgent, or the one that seems least overwhelming. You choose how you want to handle it. But going through the report and choosing some simple adaptations and taking this giant elephant one bite at a time is definitely how I recommend it. Understand, you weren't making many of these adaptations originally, and so even if you just change one thing, it's going to help. If you're a goal person, set a goal. Every Saturday, I'm gonna check the list and see, is there something else that we could tweak or adjust? Understand that some adaptations or adjustments are going to take a lot longer, and others are going to be really quick one-time fixes. A couple of the adaptations we've already made this far has been there was a lot of need for more visuals in her school. So we made a visual schedule for her. She has one that kind of lays out her whole day because she does well, because of her general anxiety disorder. She does well kind of knowing what's coming and not being surprised. So we have this here that has like her whole day laid out, and I can remove them and make it flexible. But if that becomes too overwhelming for a specific day, I also have a first then chart that she can easily just say, all right, first we're gonna do this, then we're gonna tackle that if we need to take it a little bit more bite-sized. I have them stored here in a binder, and I've actually made these printables available and made to homeschool. They won't be coming out until October, but they're coming out very soon. And if you join Made to Homeschool as a member, you'll have access to all those free printables as well as other things. And speaking of that, before I share with you a few more of the adaptions, I did want to say that my friend Megan from Pennies and Salt and myself are actually going to be hosting a live panel on Made to Homeschool on October 2nd. We are going to be taking your questions, taking those things that you guys have questions or concerns on relating to struggling learners or special needs learners, and answering them live. I'm really excited about it. And if you guys have not checked out Made to Homeschool, be sure to go join so that you can be a part of that workshop. As far as services go, they recommended several different things, and I listened to some of the recommendations, and others I chose to wait on. So for instance, they recommended that she get some tutoring or one-on-one instruction in addition to her regular school for reading, writing, and math. That's a lot, guys, on top of the many other therapies she's doing every week, and frankly would be too overwhelming. Right now, where I feel like that would be most helpful is actually in reading. So I checked out a local literacy program that is offered in our area, and so I put her on a wait list for that. And as far as math tutoring or writing tutoring, we're just going to wait on that for the moment. Now, we did make some curriculum changes, and that's what we'll talk about next. For her curriculum, we did completely switch out her math curriculum and switched her from using Horizons Math to using Math UC. Math UC focuses on one concept at a time. It has a ton of practice pages, and many people don't do all of the practice pages. It's actually built that way. You don't have to do that. If your child's picking up on a concept, they can just move through it faster. However, due to these recommendations and what we learned from this testing, we are having her do every single practice page. only one a day, but going through it and going through all of them. Because one of the things that we learned, and one of the things I have seen in homeschooling as well, is that she will appear to grasp a concept and then come back to it, and it's like it's completely brand new, literally from day to day. So taking it, mastering it completely is really, really, really important. So switching over to that has been a good fit so far. Also, we are working on more pre-teaching in our homeschool. This has been especially important with history, with science, and with Bible. So I just started out the day, like I mentioned before, asking what do we already know about this topic? So for instance, maybe it is we're learning predators versus prey in science. What do we know about predators? What do we know about prey? So we talk about those things, and then we say, we're getting ready to read a section on that. What do you think we're going to learn about that? They talk it through. And then we're like, okay, now let's read it and find out. When you go into it with some questions in mind or what you want to know about that, all of a sudden those things are going to stick a lot easier. These are just a few of the simple adaptions that we have put into place. And by kind of chunking it all up into small categories, it's made the list feel a little less overwhelming. Do we still have a lot of things that we need to switch up and adjust? Yes. But the fact is, doing it incrementally in small bites is going to be more effective for her, as too many changes can really make things difficult, and it's going to make it more doable for me. I hope this has been encouraging. Be sure to stay tuned. I want to do a series of videos here coming up very soon, all about different resources for different diagnoses. So my favorite resources for ADHD, my favorite resources for dyslexia, and so on and so forth. Let me know down in the comments which different diagnoses or different special needs that you would like to see a video on, and I will do my best. And be sure to check out Made to Homeschool so you can get in on that live panel, because it is sure to be really helpful and very encouraging as we gather together as moms of special learners. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.